Welcome, everyone, to the Business Freedom and Legacy Summit. We're excited to have you here today. We're going to be going over all the different ways that you can utilize all these different techniques to be able to reduce stress as a business owner. Maybe you're someone who's in corporate, who's wanting to start a business on the side, to be able to have something secure or be able to just go right into a full-time business. So we want to be supportive to you and help you with all of the different things that could go on as being a business owner. There's always a lot of stress involved with that and just life in general. So I have a wonderful guest speaker who's going to be addressing all of those things in a unique way, in a unique perspective, because a lot of people talk about lowering your stress levels and lowering the amount of stress that you have in your life, where she actually can show you how you can adapt to that stress and be able to overcome any kind of negative responses because of it. So I'd like to introduce Sarah Register. She's the founder of Directions for Wellness, an international health and lifestyle consulting practice that applies the new science of stress to create her stress mastery program. As a speaker and workshop facilitator, she supports success-driven individuals to rewire stress patterns so they can productively meet stress triggers without wiping themselves out. Sarah's expertise lies in exposing the underlying patterns that keep us stuck in our stress, sabotaging our health, relationships, and success. Sarah is the creator of stress mastery programs for individuals and groups. Her programs train resilient leadership so you can be a stress responder and not a stress reactor. Sarah is the author of Courage to Shine: How to Feel Confident Outside Your Comfort Zone, a mind, body, spirit approach to stress resilience teachings and practices. She shares her own journey with stress wipeout as a success-driven healthcare professional and how stress was her greatest teacher for self-healing and personal transformation. I'd like to invite you to the stage, Sarah, and tell us a little bit about how you got into this stress mastery program that you've created. What was your background before starting this program?
Yes, Jen, thanks for that introduction. And it's been a journey, I can tell you. And I started out as a very success-driven healthcare professional in nursing at a major medical center. And I had a pattern at work where I wanted to really, show up strong, give my best, be successful. And as a consequence of that, I lived in a lot of stress and I didn't really have good strategy for boundaries or discernment about how to prioritize, my work and my life. And so I wiped out my health in significant ways multiple times from the stress I was in. And it was really, significant that every time I was sick with something, I was able to heal myself and get back into the stream of my profession. And then I would do the same thing again. And so I did this dance with making myself sick from my stress, getting well, getting back in there till I had the epiphany, like a huge transformational moment where I could see, wow, it's amazing how I can heal myself. And I wonder how I could help others heal themselves. And then there was also this, there must be a way to be successful without wiping myself out in the process. And so that started my journey. And it happened to be that at that time, I was working in the area of cardiac medicine. And as I was talking with my patients in that area, I could see that mind, body, spirit in their own life, the stories they would share about, how they were brokenhearted, not just like romantically, but their dreams and what they wanted in their life, and here they are with a physical heart problem. And I could see that journey again of that mind, body, spirit of healing is not always just the physical focus. And so from there I went on to study shamanism as an indigenous wisdom of healing for over 20 years, and now I teach it and internationally. And it involves, working with nature and the elements and wisdom to create transformation in terms of leadership, personal, professional, life skills, and that personal healing journey. And I'm also trained at Duke in integrative medicine as a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. And so my journey of that whole thing that I went through really helps me bring in Western medicine model and current science of stress resilience in with personal transformation and healing. And so that's the kind of foundation of how I created my stress mastery programs. Because what I learned in the process is that sometimes reducing stress and managing stress is not this long-term solution. That often the things we stress about are those things that are important to us, that we really care about, whether it's our career, our success, our children, our partner, our family. We need often to find a better strategy to actually meet those stress triggers successfully rather than getting rid of them, leaving the job, getting rid of your children, whatever it would be to reduce your stress. No, we got to figure out, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I transform what isn't working into something that is working? And I would say that what I bring to my clients and to the organizations I work with is that this resilience is something you train to meet that edge so you can grow and refine and be, stronger, shinier, healthier, happier in the process.
And we hear a lot about stress management and stress reduction or elimination of, stress and that sort of thing. So what makes your stress mastery method unique compared to the stress management methods or stress reduction methods that are out there?
Yeah, I think there's great value in all the ways that people approach for themselves how to reduce stress and manage their stress. Because at some level, it is about how you prioritize in your life. But there's other aspects of it that can be trained and, integrated into how you communicate with people. Huge piece about how can I communicate in a way that I'm responding and listening and not being triggered and reactive. So that's, an important pattern to turn around, is to get out of reactivity of the what am I going to do, into the dropping in with, more mindful awareness of taking that breath, pausing and go, whew, this is big. How am I going to get through this? And so part of what I bring is let's get out of the what reaction mind and into the how solution mind. And so this is where leadership, whether it's in your own life, in your family, or in your workplace, that you're going to be much more energy conserving and solution oriented if you can take that pause, take a breath, drop in, and, how am I going to meet this? What are my options? What are my strategies? So part of it is how we communicate, how we listen, how we actually practice some mindful awareness strategies that are easy to use at work and at home. That makes that's part of the training. And I also offer really unique teachings that are part of this ancient lineage that I'm part of, this international community that really helps people heal at deep levels the wounding and the way we sabotage ourselves from things like shame, blame, guilt, resistance, all of those internal. So I would say, in my stress mastery program, in terms of our listeners today, there's the busy stress of how you choreograph your life and how you're prioritizing your values. That's important work to sort out what really matters today. What can I do today? How can I make sure that I can do this today, that tomorrow? Who can I ask for help? How you navigate the busyness. But there's another bigger chunk of the internal stress. And this is my ideal clients and the people I work with professionally, that they look like they have it all together on the outside. They're success-driven, growth mindset, really out there making their impact. And often inside, it's a whole nother story. That's where the insecurity is that you're hiding, or the doubt and that resistance that you're having to push through. And so that internal stress is, I would say, in the big picture, what wipes out our health and our happiness more than just the busy stress.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so you can learn to manage your stress by saying no and blocking your calendar. I mean, there's some really good strategies. But at the end of the day, what drives our stress in a big percentage is our values and
Mm,
how they're competing with each other. My
mm,
value for family, my value for me time, my value for my team, my value for this next stretch of excellence I want to go for, my value for nature, my value for my health and what I want to eat. It's like this little inner war inside of all these choices and options. And
mhm.
how can we say yes to those heart's desires? How can I say yes that I really do need that me time for me so I can show up better for my family? Or
Awesome.
how can I
Mhm.
have those boundaries with difficult people at work rather than leaving the job, find a more effective way to deal with difficult people? And then it's just like you don't have to keep extricating yourself from toxic situations. You actually can be able to not be at the impact, not have the
Mhm.
effect of people that have bad behavior or, unhealthy language. So
Right.
this
So,
is like the bigger picture. I kind of gave you a lot, but my programs are very individualized based
mhm.
on what's going on for that person. It's
Mm.
customized.
And I think when we were talking about this before, you were saying how you don't have to leave certain work situations or stressful work environments with your stress mastery program because you train people to be able to deal with those so that they can stay in that environment for the long haul. They don't have to go from one place to another. And you said it might be, you don't know if you're going to experience something the same or worse in the next environment, so you might as well adapt and adjust to what you're going through at this time. So can you explain how that would work with your stress mastery program? I think you said it would give people a longer career span as well in wherever they're placed in at this time, rather than having to go from one place to another.
Yes, that's such a strong point that you make. And a lot of my training in the healing paradigm that I work with is really about patterns, where we open the door to something, where do we need to close the door, what are we learning in that process. That's part of the body of wisdom that I work with that helps me support people with their patterns to see where are you opening the door to actually get a lesson or to evolve and grow in some way. What steps do you need to do to close the door to change that pattern? And so from that perspective, I've had this conversation with many clients. They're at the end of their rope, this job, they just know they need to leave, or this relationship, they've just got to get out of it. And so the invitation is, if you look at where your situation is right now, what's difficult and challenging about it, let's work on the pattern of where you are right here, right now, and transform and change that so that if you do go to another relationship or you do decide to go and have a different job or
Mhm.
career change, you're not bringing the old pattern into the new environment. Because people, by nature, how we're designed in our neurosystem is very habitual and patterned. That's
Mhm.
part of, we don't have to learn how to drive a car every time we get in the car to go to the grocery store. So part of it's very adaptive to get these patterns hardwired in our nervous system. But
Mhm.
to unwrap those nervous system patterns is the process and the work. And I have found time and time again, when this individual can do the work of where you are right now in this situation that's so stressful or so challenging, you're actually going to be able to move forward and not have to learn that way anymore. You can get new lessons and new opportunities to grow, but the more we just leave a situation or quit, we're
Mhm.
not going to
Mhm.
have the opportunity to really stretch into it to grow and to heal and to rise to the higher road. And so it's challenges in our life, whether it's a work environment or a family environment or a health challenge. These are all like teachers knocking on our door,
Mhm.
ready to give us something that we can learn and grow from. And so my theory, that I work with in my programs is, how can we grow from our stress? How
Mhm.
can we get out of that comfort zone and stretch beyond what we know into the unknown? And so the results that I've seen, Jen, are that when you can change the pattern of where you are right here, right now, it actually gets better. Whether it's the relationship with your partner, their job environment, that you're not as reactive, that you have strategies now to just, let things be what they are, communicate what you need to communicate. And by the individual doing their own inner work, they're going to impact their outer world. And so it's easy to blame on an environment or a person and escape and get away from. But you're almost like when people say to me, "Oh, I don't have any stress. My life is good." And I think inside, okay, well, your life must be really boring because it doesn't sound like you're stretching yourself, like you're trying to go for the more. And unknown growth, it is uncomfortable. It is stressful to change, but there's like a golden nugget on the other side of it. And so that's my job as integrative health coach, to hold that golden nugget. And we both plan how you're going to get there.
I love that because, I heard many years ago, maybe the stats have changed now, but they always say just wait 21 days and everything will change again. So don't make rash decisions or permanent decisions based on what's happening now, because if you just stick it out, like you're saying, things are going to get better and that sort of thing. And it reminds me of, I heard this story of this Japanese fish, I guess, that they use for sushi, that, they have to deliver it fresh. And every time they try to deliver it, it would show up, unalive. And then they were trying to figure it out. They thought, okay, put it in water in a tank, and it still didn't end up, that way. And so then they thought, oh, well, we'll put its enemy, its natural predator in there with the tank. And it showed up live and fresh and, and ready
for its life.
Yeah. So I love what you said about, if you don't have stress in your life, you don't have fun. You're not having anything exciting going on. It must be a really boring life. So that's a really great perspective regarding stress. I never thought of it that way. I think that's really powerful. So with regards to your health and wellness coaching, how does that differ between life coaching or executive coaching with regards to the stress mastery program?
I have a deep respect for anyone that has taken the time to get trained in the coaching communication skills and how to support people. And it's interesting because integrative, or I should say health and wellness coaching, it's a nationally board certification, and it's an evolving, emerging field. So that's where people haven't been as familiar with it. And life coaching is really like, it's a broader term, whether you're applying it to the individual at home or the person at work. Many executive coaches, are really targeting people in their work environment and their professional life. But the health and wellness coaching is more of the mind, body, spirit, holistic approach. And it is about how you support that individual to empower them, I would say, to have agency or autonomy to be their own change. And in that sense, they get to choose, how they want to do it, where they want to go. And it's like when you make change in your life, your health gets better. Because ultimately, we are physical beings, and we learn through our physical world, through our physical health, through our physical work environment. And so the health and wellness coaching really takes a holistic approach of that individual in the whole mind, body, spirit, wholeness of the work that you do together can impact not only your work, but your home and your family. And this concept of the wellness part of it is really that, we know that people who live in stress chronically, this is another arena where I help people, it's their stress response. That people have the habitual stress response, the default or fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight all day long, whether it's, someone stole your pencil off your desk at work, or you've just had a spat with your spouse in the kitchen. And it's like trying to kill a fly with a sledgehammer. That part of the work we do is to train more productive stress responses rather than always the default that's triggering the body into the whole mechanism of the sympathetic nervous system to create that chain reaction that you're fleeing for your life. Now, if you're driving your car and you want to avoid a car accident, you want to go swerve out of the way, jam on the brakes. You want that quick response to survive. But when it's a day-to-day thing and you have the continually ongoing response, it is going to wipe out your health and your happiness. And in that sense, when you know more strategic ways, like how to meet the challenge, how to grow at that edge, how to have the oxytocin boost of connecting with others and tend and befriend. There's other ways we can train ourselves to respond in stressful situations that aren't going to harm our health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say in the overall picture, to answer your question, the health and wellness coaching always has kind of the well-being of the mind, body, spirit as the outcome, as the holistic target of the whole person.
So you're not just covering it up with a Band-Aid solution. You're getting to the root cause of why it's there and the underlying issues. And with people's responses, I guess what happens is that if they're reacting, like you said, in the moment, it could cause something that could be, have a long-term consequence, right? So
Yes.
Is that something you get them to think through and be able to, realize that, okay, this may feel good in the moment to say this or do this, but long-term, it's not going to be that great. So that comes into play with being able to stay in a work situation or in a relationship long-term. So how does that work with the strategies that you have for mindfulness and communication related to your stress mastery method and program?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's what's important to recognize that part of the patterns we work on changing, for example, what is your flavor of stress response that you do to comfort yourself? Is it smoking? Is it emotional eating? Is it scrolling on your phone? Is it a Netflix binge? So, the theory is you've got a habit loop and you're choosing something that's sabotaging you. So you want to recognize that there's something you're getting from this unhealthy habit. There's something adaptive and supporting that's a reward. And so within the stress mastery, and I would say also with the health and wellness coaching, you want to see, well, what can we put in as a different behavior that is the response when the trigger happens, so you still get the reward. So an example would be a gentleman I worked with who was a smoker. He had a really stressful job in contract paving business. And so he really got a lot out of his cigarette breaks. It gave him that pause and get up from his desk and go outside and commute, share with a couple of buddy smokers, and that's all important. That's the value. What he gets is important without judgment. But on the other hand, how can he pick up some different practices that he still gets that mindful moment? He still gets that pause from his desk. He still gets connection with some friends in the moment to share and support each other. Mm-hmm. And so it's about, what can we put in that place and not have it be the cigarette? But it's more like his choice then is supported with the values that are important without compromising what he's actually getting from the habit.
Mm-hmm. I love that analogy because I remember working at a retreat center, health and wellness retreat center, and some of the people that were the housekeepers would smoke and some don't. So then what I noticed was the ones that smoked got more breaks because they would be saying they have to go get, their quick, moment of fix or relaxation away from everything. And then I noticed the ones that didn't smoke were working during that time and working harder. Mm-hmm. So how would someone who's not a non-smoker be able to deal with that kind of situation, like with your stress mastery? Because that could be stressful for the person who's still stuck having to do all the tasks that need to be done while this person gets lots of extra breaks because of that habit. So it's a different perspective on that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that has two answers, because if I'm being triggered by that person that keeps going on breaks, well, let's focus on what you need to communicate with that person to keep the relation, the working camaraderie strong, in terms of if something about shared agreements needs to happen, or if you're going to have this break, then this is what works for me. This is what doesn't work for me. So sometimes coaching can actually help us clarify how to have those difficult conversations. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is when you meet confrontation, like a difficult conversation or a difficult decision, when you get to the other side of it, you feel like, yes, I did it. And you actually gain in your measure of self-worth every time you meet confrontation and not run away from it. Mm-hmm. So there's growth there. So that's
Yeah.
part of it. So you might be helping someone to deal with that confronting work situation. And on the
Mhm.
other hand, I want to just share those people that are having smoke breaks, what they're also getting, not only the pause and the nature, getting outside, getting a little sunshine, is they're also connecting together. And that is a stress response called tend and befriend. And when we share together at the water cooler in the break room or wherever it's going to happen, we're actually going to release the oxytocin hormone, one of our major neurotransmitters for stress resilience. And oxytocin by nature dampens fear, increases courage, and makes us more social.
Mm.
This is from Brene Brown's work. And so there's something about taking those breaks and connecting that's
Mhm.
actually quite adaptive and productive to meet stress and reduce the feelings of reaction and overwhelm. But
Mhm.
there's also something about the people not doing it that there might be another conversation about, how these breaks happen, how long they are, and etc. So it could be two sides. But by working with the individuals in what matters to each of them, this is where our value systems, we're also individual of what's a really high priority core value for one person might be a feels good in the moment value for another person.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So it's looking at both sides of it,
both sides.
and then making some healthier choices if it's healthy to get out and have some sunshine and fresh air without the negative habit, kind of working that into your workday and, gathering with the others that are working as well to have some camaraderie, to be able to reduce stress as well. Maybe they could do some deep breathing
Yeah.
exercises or something together.
Yeah. And here's the thing, the finger comes out when I'm like making a point. Here's the thing that when we work with our tyrants, those people that trigger us, make us lose our space, go into this reactivity mode,
Mhm.
that when we do the work of where we open the door, how do I close the door? What am I learning for myself that I'm even reacting to this person's behavior?
Mhm.
That then when you have a strategy to confront it, deal with it, close the door to that difficult person or that annoying person, whatever it is, that
Mhm.
then it's when they do their thing and they're doing their behavior, it's like water off a duck's back, that I'm not going to be triggered. It's like, well, they can do what they're going to do. I'm not going to let it ruin my day. I'm not going to get pulled into their drama or into their whatever story is.
Mhm.
And so this tyrant work is some of the really important work in our particular environment so we can find more ease and inner calm in difficult situations, because we can't always change our environment or change the people we're working with. But
Mhm.
can we change our attitude about how we're thinking about it? Can we change our approach to how we're dealing with it? This is where coaching really helps.
Okay, wonderful. And so with regards to your program, you had mentioned something about you having workshops as well. So it's not just one-to-one, but you also do one-to-many in group format. So what do people experience when they're in your group workshops with the stress mastery from feeling stuck to feeling free? What happens during those workshops?
Well, they're very interactive.
Mhm.
And the workshop is titled Stress Mastery from Feeling Stuck to Feeling Free. And in those workshops, which can be for a small group, a huge group, a leadership team, and it usually is like 75 to 90 minutes of actual workshop with, engagement. And that can lead to a longer program, for leadership teams. Often it happens like an 8-week program where we flesh it out more. But in the stress mastery workshop, I actually teach about the new science of stress, the different, more adaptive ways to respond to stress from the fight or flight. And
Mhm.
we do strategies like I give them usually 3 different ways of practices. And I can give one today as an example, but we actually do it together. These practices that I offer, so that they walk away with their own strategies they can bring right into their life, the participants. And
Mhm.
these workshops are fun. And so I'm always saying, I love to make stress fun because it's such a big part of our life, a big part of my life. And, I'm just not going to let it conquer me.
Yeah, yeah. I've never heard that before. Someone saying stress is fun. I like that idea because it reframes it and makes it, something that's powerful in your favor than working against you. And I loved how you said when we met together earlier regarding leaning into the stress because it brings character development and growth. It's similar to when I think of those oak trees, that have been around for a long time. They've endured wind and hurricanes and rain and rainstorms and a lot of different stressors that
Mhm.
actually make them strong. And so did you want to speak to that a little bit more about how it's fun and it's good to lean in to
Yeah.
that stress?
Well, I think because I see the humor side of things, like
Mhm.
what we get ourselves into, it's like if you can pull yourself out and look from your, higher self, like, what? I'm reacting over a table? It's like, get a grip, and so there's something about, though, in a workshop environment, when you start coming up with, instant attitude adjuster mantras,
Mhm.
where people have these short, snappy expressions that they can do when they find themselves in the inner dialogue loop.
Mhm.
Those are hilarious because you want to use humor to lighten up. So if I say, I'm so busy, oh my God, I've got so much to do, I'm so overwhelmed, whatever that inner loop is.
Mhm.
And then when I say to myself, the time is now, with this voice of over the top or suck it up, buttercup, like we say these things and then you just have to crack up inside because it's like, okay, have a reboot. We reboot our computers. When the heart stops, we give the defibrillator paddles. Well, guess
Mhm.
what? The inner dialogue needs a and so strategies I give in these workshops are to really help, take that pause and drop in, etc. But also dealing with the inner dialogue that's running rampant on a busy day at work.
Mhm.
Um, it's great to have strategies for that. So you're not stuck in it and losing energy from it.
I love that. And because this summit is called Business Freedom and Legacy Summit, having that workshop where you're releasing the freedom in people regarding the stress, I think that's a perfect match there. So, how are people going to feel more free from your 12-week mastery stress mastery program and from these workshops?
Yeah.
And yeah, and tell us a little bit more about that freedom aspect of it because joy has a lot to do with what you're doing and the laughter. And I think that
Yeah.
brings a lot of healing as
Mhm.
well. So how would that be supportive to people in corporate and then those that are starting their own business or wanting to grow their own business as well?
Yeah. Well, Jen, one of the things I want to point out at this stage, obviously I have gray hair, but a huge part of our life and living is at work.
Hmm.
And many people are choosing to excel in their work. And, where you started in your career and where you are, there's a growth trajectory. And one of my mentors, pointed out to me that your work is a spiritual practice. Not that we have to be spiritually overt, like whatever our faith beliefs are, but there's something as a human being that whether I'm starting my own business and I have to set my prices and I have to market myself and I have to put myself out there, or there's like this next opportunity in my current work environment that I'd like to stretch and grow into, that we have to recognize how much of our human experience of growth and experience and maturity and shining, is in that work environment. And so, from that perspective, I would say many of the professionals that I work with, what they get when they come to work with me in my 12-week program is we always start with a validated tool called the Cohen Perceived Stress Assessment. And it's a really simple assessment where it gives you an actual number. Are you high stress, over the chart stress, average stress? And very consistently, I do this assessment at the start of our work together, and it's always high.
Hmm.
And then we retake the assessment at the end of our 12 weeks, and it's always reduced by 50% or more. That
Hmm.
perceived stress number comes down
Wow.
significantly.
Hmm.
And this is because their life is transformed because they're doing their life differently in
Hmm.
their day to day. It's the
Hmm.
small steps you build on. And coaching is really important because it's the taking steps, building on things over time that integrates the change for permanent change. Dipping in and doing a workshop is amazing, and you'll walk away with some tips and tools. But the bigger work is when you're working together in partnership to build on the new patterns, the new change, the new ways to actually have a life that you love, that's more fulfilling, that you're able to discern what things that are not going to contribute to your happiness, or work on those things that are draining your energy. And so I'll say it, when you change your life, your health gets better. We don't have to work on the blood pressure and the adrenals and the cortisol levels, but can we change the patterns in your life, how you're doing your life? Your body's going to respond.
Right. I think when we first talked about your program, I had said, oh, do you actually help people lower their cortisol levels? Because that's something that, I've noticed with different stress programs, they want to lower cortisol levels. And you said, my cortisol levels are probably high, but you deal with the stress, like you said, overall to maintain health because of the perceived stress, and leaning into it, making it a fun thing to enjoy. So can you talk to that a little bit about, you said you don't have to necessarily monitor all those different aspects, but just have a better quality of life in general. Like that's a different kind of or like a different angle or different take on the whole, stress reduction aspect of things. So yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because it's quite unique, the perspective you have.
Yeah. Well, because at the framework, can we meet our triggers of stress as a challenge to grow from? And so the self-talk, okay, if you think about the athlete, the star athlete has the big game coming. And on the day of the game, they're going to have sweaty palms, butterflies in their stomach, the heart's going pitter patter, but they're excited. They're excited because they want to win the game. They're anticipating how they're going to perform and what they're going to do in this game. And so that's the meeting the challenge mindset. So when I say change your stress response, there's a shift of perspective that I can be more fulfilling in my life, less perceived, oh my gosh, how am I going to, what am I going to do here? And okay, I've got a lot on my plate. And so there's something about how can I meet this challenge that you're actually going to grow more from it. You're going to be able to learn and build on your skills when you have this mindset of meeting a challenge versus the anxiety of, oh my God, this is so scary. I can't believe I said yes to this. How am I going to, what if I fail? That when you start doing the fight or flight, you're going to only see how can I survive from this experience. You're not able to learn from it. And so this is where the stress mastery perspective is saying, can I have a mindset of how I can meet this challenge? What are my resources? What are my options? What are my solutions? And so this mindset and programming isn't coming between the chin and the eyebrows of the analytical mind. It's coming from here, the core, the inner wisdom of the gut and the intuition, that we want to really trust what our inner wisdom is and our inner knowing. And so this is where you can kind of see the higher road, and not necessarily that stress is always fun, but is it fulfilling? Can I see my progress in life? Can I see that I can do my life in a way that is nourishing my happiness and my harmony, my relationships, and my growth?
Okay. So it's really a unique way of looking at it, because people are always thinking about, all the different perceptions regarding, all the things that could happen in the future, rather than, staying mindful, like you're saying, in the now and not worrying about what could happen in the future. So how would you balance that with, all the things that people could be thinking of if they're watching the news, or different, even just thoughts that they have going on? How would you deal with that from the, the core of who you are, rather than in the head, area of the thinking aspect of it.
Yeah, because the thinking is going to go to the future and create scenarios, right? I think the important thing that the news is around us, that there's a lot of hype in the world, that we're all trying to do business online. And what do we see online? Yeah. It's about, we get to choose what we want to think about. I can choose what I want to think about. And if there's something I'm thinking about, what strategy do I have to change the channel? I don't have to get caught in that. And so a simple tool that I offer my clients, for example, that they can do it in a meeting, they can do it at their desk, they can do it in the car, but it's called Pause, Notice, Choose. And when you do pause, everyone write this down on a little sticky: pause, notice, choose. So when you take a pause, you just take a breath and drop in to your center with a long, slow, deep breath. Then you notice. You want to be brutally honest. Name what's there for you. Is it overwhelm? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it panic? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Name it. Then that's the notice. And then the choose step is where, what action can I take that will empower me and not sabotage me? And so here's where the doom scrolling, the emotional eating, the cigarette, the drink, is there something I can do instead? What options do I have? What can I choose that will empower me and not sabotage me? Might be to make a cup of tea, might be to take a little walk outside, might be to text an important friend for a little connection moment. That there's something about exercising the free will muscle is what my clients learn. That you're not at the effect of your life. And it does take mindfulness and awareness, like the breath, the pause, the paying attention is what we train, so that you actually choose, what are my actions? What are my thoughts? What's my strategy here to meet this challenge? And so you're not so much at the effect of your life with no control. You're actually more like driving the bus of your own bus. Yeah, you're in the driver's seat.
I love that idea of, like you said, just go for a walk rather than let that, go in your head. And I just saw yesterday that taking a walk, at dawn and dusk helps with the circadian rhythms, which helps with your sleep and helps with the stress levels. And so I love that idea of just go take a walk. It gets some fresh air, sunshine, and just kind of take a breath and a breather to be able to relax and calm all those different thoughts that are going on. And what would you say regarding AI? Because I know AI is kind of getting, to be something of the forefront, and people are getting all into that, and that can be quite stressful, learning all the new technology. What are your thoughts regarding what you do in relation to AI and learning all the different aspects regarding that for business as well?
That's such a great question, Jen, because I think I'm kind of behind the ball on the AI stream that's happening. And I think that for business owners, AI can be very supportive, whether you're writing a blog or you're using some of the tools to support your business. And I think that we have to remember as humans that we really thrive with connection. And so we want to have boundaries. I would say, like, this is an example. So I write a blog every month. I just wrote one yesterday, and always relative to what's up. And I get all these offers of the wording, and they're good ideas, or I could just put it into AI and have it all, jazz it up for me. But there's something about my voice or my choice of words that there's an authentic agency that I don't want to give away to AI. And so I think in terms of tools for an office, there is a definite place. I don't think AI is going away anytime soon. It can be a tyrant that we're getting triggered by. So how can we find a way that we actually can just, recognize, okay, well, there's good things and bad things. I'm going to use it when I need it and not let it rule my life. So there are people who will be triggered by AI.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of people are. Yes.
But it's more like the unknown. Actually, there's an element of the unknown. We don't really know where it's taking us and who's driving the AI bus. Am I in charge, or is it driving me? And this is like really pivotal.
Yes. So then using your techniques and your stress mastery program will really help people navigate that as well. And how does it support empowered leadership? with your stress mastery program?
Yeah, and I'm going to segue. I'm going to answer. This does support empowered leadership,
Yes.
but the example is a client. So
Okay.
I have a client who's in management in a recruiting, like employee recruiting kind of environment.
Mhm.
And so her world is being greatly impacted by AI with all the ways people get connected to jobs.
Mhm.
And then that creates stress for her because there's a demand of how many contacts she has to make, how much business she has to bring in, and yet she's competing with these bots, right? So empowered leadership. So that's where we need to work with her to have strategies at work that she actually can meet the demands of her current role in her business
Mhm.
as a manager, but also can keep up with her day to day. That's what's on her plate of her job to do. So she's got like a double dip, right?
Mhm.
And so there's strategies we have. And this is another key part about the busy professionals. There's a lot we can do with your work and how you approach your work with that attitude and approach, and how you can make those reach out calls fun. It's kind of an interesting exploration so that you can have an internal giggle kind of thing. But on the other side, it's very important of what she's doing outside of work to fill her tank, to keep herself prioritized, to not forget herself.
Mhm.
And so here's an example of something I might give a client of a practice that sounds easy and it's not. That you do one thing a day that's pure heart's desire. It can be a little thing. It's not bucket list. One thing a day, pure heart's desire, and you do it for 30 consecutive days.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you miss a day, you start over at day one.
Okay.
And so for really like striving, success-driven people like that never even pay attention to their heart's desire, they're just going to soldier through. This is a stretch for them to really tune into, what do I want? What can I do that's going to fill my tank? That is going to make me feel a little moment of happiness. If I don't have a happy life, can I capture moments of happiness as the muscle I'm training?
Oh, wow. That's powerful. So what would be an example of something that someone would choose for their heart's desire to do each day? Because when you said that, I thought of chocolate immediately, but yet you said not to do emotional eating. So
well, this is the thing, is that people, that's why I said it sounds like, oh, that's a nice thing to do, one thing a day, but it's so individual. I mean, it could be something like a bubble bath. It could be a walk in the park. It could be going into a bookstore. It could be coffee with a friend. It's like there's nothing too small if it's long, and you get extra points if it's something spontaneous in the moment. I would love to do that. I'm going to do it right now versus planning it out.
Okay.
And so exercising more spontaneity in the moment of desires is quite an edge for some people because their life is so scheduled.
Okay. So not having the same thing, because at first I was thinking it's the same thing every day for 30 days, but you're saying, no, be
Shake it up.
spontaneous. Okay. Awesome. What do you do each day for your moment of happiness? What are some things that you've chosen?
Yeah. Mine are things like taking a hike or, and I do enjoy like making social connections because, I'm working online, obviously. So I confess there's days when I go to the grocery store to have a human connection.
Yeah.
But there's things like as simple as reading a book, and just pleasure reading, not a self-help book. Or it might be that I work in my garden. And so there's things to do. As I said, for some people, it might be crafting or hobbies. That it's very individual, what would be on someone's heart's desire list, but it's making the time and prioritizing your, I could say self-care, but how you're going to fill your tank. Because this is where stress leads to the long chain of health problems, is that when we run on empty, when we don't have reserves, and we're constantly sucking our life force energy into the day-to-day and not having moments of the refilling, refueling, recharging. It's essential in this world we're in because there's so much, incoming and so much busyness.
Mm-hmm.
And I could say too, the science says you could have two people, person A, person B, both really busy. And it's the mindset. The person that says, oh my God, this job is going to kill me. I've got to stop doing this. They're going to have more health problems and a shorter life And the other person that says, wow, I'm really busy, I better figure out a plan here. They don't think stress is harmful. They're going to live longer and be healthier. Science has shown that.
Yeah, it reminds me as you're saying that when children are raised by the same parents, one child perceives it in one way and the other child perceives it in another way. So similar situations that are stressful, two people can approach it differently. So I love that. And then with regards to testimonials and results with your ideal clients and regarding your book as well, could you tell us a little bit about some of those results that you've experienced and then what is inside your book? The Courage to Shine.
Yeah. So I've shared some results already with people, the construction guy that wanted to quit smoking. And certainly I would say, and people have chronic health problems sometimes, and sometimes we have stress-induced health problems. But I always see health as a knock of spirit, like in the sense of there's something I can learn from this to grow from. And healing is not always physical healing. You got all these other mind, body, spirit aspects that might be healing. And so one of the examples I have of one of my clients was a woman who had her own accounting firm, and her business was on the verge of growing. But every time she tried to grow her business, she also had a history of MS, and her symptoms would flare up and put her either in a wheelchair or in bed. I mean, it was like really extreme. But she really had this desire to have her own business and to see it grow. And her marriage was being impacted with her health problems. And so we worked together, and over time in the 12-week program, she really turned her life around. And it was quite amazing with her testimonial, because what she brought in, because she was doing numbers and counting all day long, we actually brought in more creative doodling and creative like coloring books. And so she brought in more creativity into her day-to-day. And just that one step kind of opened the door where she started eating better, sleeping better, like changing the other areas. You make one change and there's other changes that happen. And so eventually she got very stable with her MS, didn't need any cane or anything. Her business grew and her marriage thrived. And so that's really fulfilling to me when I can partner with someone and we do the work together. So it wasn't all up to her to figure it out. And I don't tell her what to do. I'm in the bus beside her. She's driving the bus, right? And so that was very transformational. And I've seen that time and time again. Or another client I had was a professional PharmD at a busy medical center here. We worked together, and she was ready to get a divorce, leave her marriage, and call it quits. And part of me was like, oh, they need marriage counseling. I thought, well, we'll stay in the coaching. And when she did her own work, her own transformation, it impacted her professionally when she brought those tools for resilience into her work environment, and her marriage completely turned around, and they're living happily ever after because she did what she needed to do for her. So the coaching is about the individual sitting across from me or the group I'm working with, and not the people in their lives. As far as, there's a lot of opportunity for us to dig into our own shadow, shine the light in there, poke a stick at it. How can I turn this around? What am I learning from this situation? And so I'm the kind of coach with that mind, body, spirit approach that we can do that deeper work of healing.
Wow, that's wonderful. It sounds like you have a really great program that has the power of one to be able to affect the many around you. It reminds me of, a Navy SEALs book. A book written by Navy SEALs called Extreme Ownership, where they take extreme ownership over their own life and agency and, that power to choose, and they see amazing things happen. And so that reminds me of that you're getting that to happen with your clients, and then other things start to shift and transform with their relationships, and everything around them starts getting better because of that internal transformation that's taking place.
So all it starts with assuming authority for your happiness, taking responsibility for your life, co-empowering self-life and others, and standing accountable for your own growth. So the book I wrote is called The Courage to Shine: How to Feel Confident Outside Your Comfort Zone. And this is actually a memoir of my own journey. So it's very transparent. And then I share each time, well, this is what I experienced. this is what practice or what teaching supports this. Now, here's how you can apply it to your life. So it is a memoir, but it's also has clear strategies, a very pragmatic approach to rewiring stress patterns.
Oh, that's
So this is
awesome.
available like on Amazon, Apple Books, Audible,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
everyone that reads it, like they fold the page down, outline things, highlight it. They really love this book. So
That's awesome. Do you have the link to that book so people can get it today, or we can put it in the speaker bundle so that they're able to get that, click on that link and then get it? Because I want to get it as well because it looks
okay,
really amazing.
and
So,
the Audible is my voice,
oh, okay, okay,
sitting
that's
in my closet recording it.
okay. I love Audible because yeah, it's easier to listen and then do other
Mhm.
things at the same time as you're listening to it. That's wonderful.
My
And
clients are Audible people.
and so what are some of the transformations that have happened with your book? Have you heard anybody that you said they're folding the page and they're, I guess they're savoring every moment of it and then going back to it to reference
Mhm.
those areas that they're saving.
Yes, I know
So,
some people got the Audible and they went and wanted the hard copy so they could take notes. And
okay.
men have gotten a lot out of this book as well. It's been really, I love hearing from people um, what their takeaway is from this book because it is spiritual, but a very pragmatic, here's how you're evolving, growing, healing kind of message. Yeah.
Okay.
And it
Okay.
talks about how I went from Catholicism to shamanism and how that stretch happened and how the two come together and how I also, as I said, bring in Western medicine. I'm
Mhm,
not anti-Western medicine.
mhm,
We
mhm.
need the tests. Sometimes we need the medication as the bridge to the greater healing.
Right, because you were
Yeah.
in healthcare before, right? As a
27 years.
Yeah. Okay. So you've seen it all with regards to the aspect of people having stress, affecting their health. And so that's what got you into this area after seeing all of that.
After
Yeah.
I experienced it and saw it in my patients. Definitely.
Wow.
That's really what kind of opened the door to shamanism. I wasn't looking for something, but then I understood what was happening to my patients when they were deeply confronted by their heart disease or their tumors or whatever was going on. And I witnessed how they met that deep confrontation with their health in the hospital, who lived, who died. It was all so fascinating. And then this
Oh.
whole spiritual body of wisdom helped
Mhm.
me understand how that all works.
And what was the pattern that you noticed of those that lived and recovered from those similar, experiences? What was the
Mhm.
difference?
Well, what was interesting is that you could take two patients and one, they get the same standard of excellent care, same hospital, same everything, like, a placebo test.
Hmm.
And there were some patients that had every complication, really rough road, and they still came out the other end and went home. And then there were patients that got the very best care, and despite everything, they still died. And so that's where I kind of was very actually fascinated by this human journey of how is it that this adrenaline junkie skydiver ends up as a quadriplegic? It's like, that's really interesting and tragic. But there was some curiosity in me about what is it about that human spirit? And I think, Jen, what I saw was I witnessed the human spirit and that resilience and that connection to something greater was what they needed to meet that edge, even if it was going to be their death. Not everyone's going to live, obviously, but I saw the light in their eyes, so to speak. And in those situations, they would often open their hearts and share with me as their nurse in those quiet moments at 2 a.m,
Hmm.
and share their stories. So I had that connection. I witnessed it. And so then I understood from this other lineage how we are programmed as physical beings to grow in this lifetime. So it's my
Hmm.
my desire to support people to evolve and grow in their life wherever they are to get to that next level.
And so then that's where the book, The Courage to Shine, title came from that experience of seeing that shining light inside of people and wanting them to shine no matter what.
Yeah, and that I have teachings in here from my lineage, the healing paradigm that I work within. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So I hope everyone gets that book. And then you also have a few free gift offers as well for the audience. Can you share a little bit about those?
Yes. I have this stress resistance tool. It's just a simple PDF little assessment tool that's really simple things like I have a successful career, but I never have time to really do the things I enjoy. It's that kind of a introspective assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have an ebook that is called How to Grow from Your Stress, to reframe, rewire, and evolve your stress for a life you really love.
Wow, that's powerful. I think that's so amazing. I love your perspective of stress, of making it fun and something that brings growth and that we lean into rather than try to, get away from. Because, like you said, if they have no stress in their life, they're not really having an exciting life.
Yeah. And so ideally, my clients are that growth mindset person. They've been doing lifelong learning, so I'm like the next teacher that's coming.
Wonderful. Well, I encourage everyone to connect with Sarah. And when you go to businesscoachingamerica.com/, VIP-access, you're going to get all of the speaker free gift bundles of all their lead magnets and everything that they have to offer. Everyone, those two are amazing. I really encourage everyone to book in with Sarah as well. And we'll have all of those things available to you when you book in with both of us. If you can book in today at businesscoachingamerica.com, and then we'll get you also to meet with Sarah as well, and you'll get all of the free gifts. And when you book in with Sarah, I'll give you an extra bonus as well, extra free gifts as well. So I encourage everyone to go to businesscoachingamerica.com today/summit to register for the summit, or to get the VIP upgrade. The VIP-access is the / after that .com as well. So I appreciate you, Sarah, for coming on today. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience? What would you like to talk about before we go?
Well, did we have fun today talking about stress?
Yes, I did.
There's a lighter side, people. There's a lighter side. You can always have the dark and the light. There's two sides of the coin. Which one are you going to look at?
Yeah, and the joy and laughter that we had. Yeah,
and I would say on my website at Directions for Wellness, there's all kinds of resources and blogs. And certainly I'm on LinkedIn, and I have a newsletter. I write a blog every month. This one is about happiness. How to rewire your mindset for happiness is going to be sent out this week.
Wonderful. I'm gonna start to follow you with regards to that newsletter and blog as well, because I think that's really powerful. And with regards to legacy, how does that relate with everything you do? Because we're on the Business Freedom and Legacy Summit. We talked about the freedom aspects, the joy, the happiness, the fulfilling your heart's desire and leaning into the stress every day. But what about the legacy aspect of what you do with the Stress Mastery Program?
Yeah, the legacy aspect truly is to support my clients to really have that agency, that free will to choose, and being able to make an impact on how you put yourself out into the world to shine with your gifts naturally, authentically. And it starts with two things. First, you need awareness to even see what you can change or be aware what you're doing is the block. And then that free will muscle. We got to exercise choice and free will of where we want to focus. What do we want to think about? What steps am I going to take? That this is my legacy that I offer into the people I work with.
And then it affects everyone around you, and then it creates that ripple effect with everyone else to start to rise to that occasion, and then doing it together. I think that's powerful. And then if anyone's in like a corporation or in their business, it's going to create that legacy because of the relationships that they have with their coworkers or their employees or their spouse or children, and then be able to, out of that overflow and abundance, be able to even contribute more to this world. So I appreciate all the things that you're doing and the beauty of the joy that you bring to it. I never thought of it that way. And I don't think most people think of stress that way. And that's part of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. The stress will never go away. They actually say it actually gets, even more.
Exponentially more.
Yeah, as you start to level up with your business as well. So it's like just part of it. And being able to adapt and adjust to all the new things that are happening with the new technology and AI and all of that, I think is really important to know how to do this. So I really encourage everyone to connect with you and have that stress evaluation done for themselves individually and for their team and corporation or business with their, employees or the group that they're leading as well. I think is really important. Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Sarah, and anyone that goes to businesscoachingamerica.com and books in today with myself and Sarah, let me know when you've booked in with Sarah as well. Then I'll give you an extra free gift. And then if you go to businesscoachingamerica.com/VIP-access, you're going to get even more gifts from all of the speakers from the previous events and the future events as well. All right, Sarah, I'm going to have you come on again because I think you're such an amazing person to talk to. And it's so much fun to say stress is fun. I've never thought of it that way. And now that you've said that, I'm going to have to really, let that sink in.
Well, there's a light side, and we can choose to get ground down in the minutia or, poke our head up and think, okay, what's another perspective here?
Yeah, I went to a whole retreat, health retreat a few years ago. And the whole thing was that they were saying all disease, in their opinion, comes from, or majority of it comes from stress. And then that we need to reduce our stress and all of that. And it was just like, I didn't really get how that's possible. So I think that what you have to offer actually is truly possible for those that are in corporate who want to maybe leave corporate or who are going to be leaving corporate or who want to have a business on the side or go all in on their business. I think it's going to be really important for them to take something like this because you can't say eliminate all stress. Like that's just not, and like you said, when someone said they have no stress, it's like, well, you mustn't have a very exciting life.
They're living in the comfort zone. Well, that's fine if you're making that choice, but those clients out there who work with me are not that person.
Yeah, exactly. So I really encourage everyone to go to Sarah's website. Again, that's Sarah 4, the number 4. Is that right? Or Sarah?
Yeah, Directions for Wellness, or my email is sarah@directionsforwellness.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, awesome, Sarah. I appreciate you. We'll have you come on again in a few weeks. All right, everyone. So go to businesscoachingamerica.com and book in with both of us today, and you're going to get an extra free gift and all the free gift bundles as well. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right,
cheers.
Thank you.
And we're going to bring on another guest speaker now as well. So I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Andrea. She is somebody who is a powerful woman who is able to help people with their gut health primarily. We were talking about stress with Sarah, and then now we're going to be talking about gut health and inflammation as well, and bringing that down to bring healing to our bodies. So today's all about bringing healing from the health and wellness perspective, from health and wellness coaches, so that we can be supportive to you as a business owner with the Business Freedom and Legacy Summit. So Andrea Pomeroy is a clinical nurse specialist. She's a certified holistic nutrition and health coach, an entrepreneur, author, and speaker. She's dedicated to helping women achieve lasting health through evidence-based lifestyle change. With more than 16 years of nursing experience and a master's degree in nursing, Andrea has built her career translating complex medical science into practical strategies people can apply in everyday life. She combines her clinical experience and expertise with holistic health coaching and personal experiences to help women understand the powerful connections between stress, health, nutrition, sleep, and sustainable behavior change. Andrea is the co-founder of ANN Holistic Health and co-host of the Double Dose of Wellness podcast, where she and her sister empower women to move beyond quick fixes and build healthier lives through science, compassion, and realistic habits. She's also the author of Memories of Me, a poetry collection exploring healing, resilience, and personal transformation through life's most difficult seasons. Whether speaking to healthcare professionals, entrepreneurs, or mothers, Andrea delivers engaging, research-informed presentations that leave audiences feeling inspired, empowered, and equipped with practical evidence based tools to improve both their health and performance. When she isn't coaching clients, leading workshops, or speaking, Andrea enjoys spending time with her daughter and working on her next book, all while continuing her mission of helping women thrive in both life and health. So I'd like to bring Andrea up to the stage. Hi, Andrea. Welcome to Business Freedom and Legacy Summit. I'm excited to have you on today. So tell me a little bit about how you got into this line of work with the health and wellness coaching. What brought you to this point right now of where you're at with your business?
Hi, Jen. Thank you. That's such a great question starting out. So I've been a nurse since I was 22, 16 years of nursing. And during that time, I've worked in a variety of areas. I worked ICU and burns and plastics. I worked community palliative care. I did a lot of teaching. And I also moved from the East Coast of Canada all the way to Vancouver, BC. So just continually seeing the healthcare system and where, when people come to the healthcare system, it's because something's already wrong. And so wanting to address those challenges before they become serious health concerns. Also being somebody who has experienced my own health challenges, being in the fitness and wellness space for well over a decade, and just seeing that missing link between the lives that we live and then the things that we experience. Chronic inflammation, of course, is something that's so prevalent in our current population. Also an influence to gut health and the talk we just listened to on stress, how stress wreaks havoc on our health systems. And so all of those, it just seemed like I naturally gravitated towards health and wellness coaching.
That's wonderful. And so then at what point did you realize that traditional healthcare alone wasn't the whole answer to helping people feel well? Was there a specific moment in time or just something gradually you just discovered as you were in healthcare?
Yeah, just something gradually happened and starting off with my own personal journey and, trying to lose weight or maintain weight. Some of the people that I have worked with around eating disorders and just a lot of the things that would come up and then just seeing, everything that contributes to, it's not just what's on our plate or not just how much we exercise. And those are so often the missing pieces. I'm somebody, well before I got into all of this, I have the 30-day meal plans, the 7-day reset, all of those tools and resources we buy, the cupboards of supplements. And at the end of the day, they're just a temporary fix. So until you start going to the root cause and understanding what's happening, that's where we can see real change and lasting change experienced in my.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, awesome. And so then with regards to you and your sister creating ANN Holistic Health, what inspired both of you to do that together? And then I know you have a podcast you do together. So what inspired you to work together regarding the health and wellness coaching?
Yeah, this is, we think it's an interesting story, but my sister, we're twins, we're identical twins. She's actually in the healthcare field as well. So she's a respiratory therapist and has been for 16 years. Also, her and I kind of started on our fitness journeys and working out together and all of that. And so about 5-6 years ago, we were talking, I was working one weekend and she was looking at a program on her computer and I was actually looking at the same program, which was certifications in health and wellness and nutrition. And so it just seemed from that day, whether it's because our personalities are so similar and our interests are similar, that we decided this is what we're going to do and we're going to start a business. The podcast, Double Dose of Wellness, we started that. It's been well over a year. We're coming up to our 100th episode. And it just allows us to provide more teaching, more connections with women, for them to get to know us. We discuss a variety of topics, not just from nutrition, but a lot of the trends that are happening, identity-based change, some of the challenges we go through. The majority of the population we work with is women, just because of our own personal experiences. So being able to share all that, again, just seems like a natural gravitation to and developing the podcast.
That's so amazing. I've always heard of like twins having connections, even if they're far away, they'll sometimes think certain things that are the same or say the same thing at the same time or have certain feelings at the same time. So that's really powerful that you both wanted to get into this kind of at the same time without knowing each other was getting into it at that time. So
Yeah.
that's really amazing. So then was there a particular moment in your own life that made you realize you wanted to approach health differently? You mentioned you had some things along your health journey that happened. What was that in particular for you?
Yeah. Just being a young woman at the time that I was and university and starting to work out and figuring out healthy eating. I just find it interesting because regardless of my experience as a nurse and everything that I knew in health and wellness and providing healthcare, just because we know things doesn't mean we implement them in our own lives. And I struggled a lot with eating disorders and body image and following the meal plans and the exercise plans and not really getting the results that I wanted. And so I knew that I was missing something. And, through lots of trial and error and my own, studying it personally and my knowledge as a nurse and then just connecting all of those pieces, but also recognizing how much of our life influences our health and wellness. Anyone can follow a 30-day meal plan and probably get great results. But if you're going back into the same environment or you have the same patterns of thinking and the same behaviors, are those results sustainable? And that's really what we focus on in our coaching, is to make sure that we bring all of those things so that when people step away, they're confident they can do this and sustain this and still get results long after that coaching relationship is finished.
Yeah, I loved that aspect when we met earlier regarding it, how you want people to have this as a lifestyle change, not just something that's a quick Band-Aid fix or something that, like you said, is temporary, but you want them to have it, sustain, throughout their life. So I think that's really powerful. And what did you learn through your nursing career and experiences that now bring you bring into your coaching practice? Is there anything specific with regards to that?
Yeah, definitely. And, even just thinking of what's changed over the last 16 years, what hasn't changed is the amount of information that's accessible. And although we have access to more and more information, it's really hard for people to go through that information and, be able to process it and cherry pick what works best for them. It's not as easy as just reading something, taking it and applying it and having it work for you, because everybody's so individual, what's happening in their bodies, what's happening in their life, how they respond to stress, other things that may be happening. And so as a nurse, being able to make those connections. And the big thing is what information is credible, what information is evidence-based. Is there third-party research to back that up? Like there's so many things that we should be taking into consideration when we read something before we accept it and apply it and start to use it in our own life. And so that's the biggest thing, is making sure people have accurate information. And then when we do work with clients, it's okay, this is the information. This is where you're at and where you want to go. How can we best get you from here to there without being overwhelmed and without, trying all the new trends and all the new supplements and all the new things that come out? Because at the end of the day, you need to make decisions that you feel good, but also that are appropriate for you.
Yeah, I love that idea of not buying every single supplement, because I think we've all done that, where we've heard something about one and then we go and buy it and then it's like, what is this actually? And we don't even know if we need it, right? We don't even have any kind of baseline. And as a nurse, you would realize that there's some kind of baseline testing that needs to be done, or something that we need to evaluate to see whether that's necessary or not. But what you're talking about is getting to the root cause and having things the root level, rather than just kind of putting Band-Aid solutions by trying different supplements. It's kind of just, random selection of them. So, so what are some of the biggest transformations you've witnessed with regards to the health and wellness coaching that you've done with people, getting to that root cause?
Mm-hmm. Some of the when people come to us, it's usually with a very specific goal in mind. So let's pick something common like weight loss. Somebody wants to lose weight. Okay, well, why do you want to lose weight and why do you have weight to lose? So oftentimes what we identify as the priority,
Mhm.
especially for something like weight loss, is actually the symptom of something else that's happening underneath the surface. And that can be physical and it can be emotional, mental, a combination of both.
Mhm.
So, first looking at somebody's lifestyle and decisions that they're making in terms of movement and nutrition and stress, but also, why is that particular goal important to them? And one of the easiest exercises that anyone can work through is the seven levels of why. And so, why do you want to lose weight? Well, I want to be able to fit into these pants. Why do you want to be able to fit into those pants? And being able to work with somebody to get deeper and deeper and deeper to the reason. Well, it's because they're exhausted and because they want to be able to keep up with their kids, or they want to be able to go after new goals, and they want to feel confident and not insecure. And so there's always much deeper reasons to the why we want to accomplish something, and that's part of the transformation that we work with. Also, the lifestyles that we live today, they're very fast moving. They're very high stress, whatever that stress is to that individual person. And so the biggest transformation that people leave with, the clients that leave, is the change in behavior and the change in identity. So really, we all make choices from patterns of behavior and what we identify as. Somebody who's coming to us and they talk to themselves negatively all the time. Like, I
Mhm.
can't do this. This isn't going to work. This is going to fail. I've done this 100 times before and it doesn't work. So that's one of the biggest sabotagers of success, because if that's your
Mhm.
mindset and that's your frame of thinking, the way that your brain is wired, you're always going to make decisions that kind of align with what you believe about yourself. And
Mhm.
so those are the biggest transformations that we see. And when we're working with people, primarily women, with our program, yes, a lot of it is what food's in your pantry and what are you eating. But the biggest transformation comes from working with those things: nervous system regulation, patterns of behavior, identity work. And so that's where we see the biggest success. It's also where we feel, the most proud of our clients when they're leaving us, and because they're able to continue that, sustaining those changes and continuing to make changes is not a problem after that because they've done the work.
Mm. So, having a different image of themselves in their mind, then it can kind
Mhm.
of display outside physically as well. So, starting from that identity that you're talking about, that's really important. And so, with regards to the book that you created, Memories of Me, you said
Mhm.
it's a very personal one. What made you decide to share your story publicly? So, those are probably some internal things and thoughts that you had
Yes.
that you're now sharing publicly. So, yeah, so tell me a little bit about that and how it's been impactful for yourself and others.
Yeah. It's actually, this kind of goes back to my own identity work,
Mhm.
because I saw myself as a nurse, working in, a healthcare system, and then wanting to do all these things on the side, like writing and health coaching, also being a mom and going through multiple miscarriages, going through a very challenging divorce and starting over at 34 years old with a young child. I tried to keep all of these pieces separate. And at the end of the day, they impact your health. Any difficult or challenging situation we go through, and our emotional and mental health. Well, again, even despite what I learned, and now I was a coach and coaching women, those things were directly impacting my health. And I ended up taking a couple months off work and just refocusing, and focusing on myself and rest and recovery, which is also something that we preach a lot with our clients. And so during that time, actually, a lot of the poems in the book are just poems that I've written to myself in my journal, over the span of a decade, never intending for them to see the light of day, let alone be
Mhm.
printed permanently on paper. But during that time, I continued to write and reflect on my experiences, and just accepting that they were all pieces of me, and all pieces of my story. And also, which allows me to connect with my clients and to connect with my patients' nursing on a deeper level, because that it's all part of the human experience. There wasn't, just because I was challenging or having challenges with depression and anxiety, and I had multiple miscarriages, it didn't make me any less of a coach. It didn't make me a less capable nurse. Even as a mother, we hold ourselves to certain standards and have expectations, but embracing those parts of myself and being able to share them, it wasn't a process overnight. It was something very gradual and very slow, because I'd always been a very private person. But the doors that had opened up, and the conversations I have had with people who have experienced things and how it impacts our health, at the end of the day, it's all part of the human experience. And so writing it and sharing it was as much healing for me as some of the people who I've connected with that have read it. Actually, the book is here, Memories of Me. And so that's my daughter on, I know it's blurred out. That is my daughter on the front cover.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. And it's very raw. It's very easy to read poetry, but it's on, grief and loss, but who we become through that by trying to understand our experiences, and just, not shying away from those hard, difficult conversations, because we can learn something from every experience, and we should, which just, that's just with self-growth and development.
So the journaling helped shape your identity to go from something, maybe a negative view of your self-identity, to something more positive. Was that part of yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And how that reflects in our choices. Because if you're in a continual negative headspace, it's really hard to get out of that. And so taking those experiences we deem as negative, and what we can learn from them, at the end of the day, when we feel like we've been done wrong, or we've been betrayed, or we've experienced grief and loss, we still have accountability to ourselves to take something from that and grow. And those are skills we put, that can go with anything, building a business, for example, as a nurse, as a health coach, learning from what we've experienced, and then what we do different next time. Those skills are applicable everywhere.
So what are some kind of testimonials for yourself and those women that you've worked with, that you've seen before and after utilizing your method in helping their health, especially when it relates to women who are in corporate, such as like yourself, in like a corporate like environment, and building a business, or wanting to go all in on their business? Have you seen specific transformation in those areas that are supportive to them in their life, like family, business, work life?
Yeah. A lot of the women my sister and I end up working with is women very much like ourselves. So we're still connected to corporate. I'm still a nurse. My sister works in the private sector, and then we're doing health coaching, and we're moms. And so, all of those aspects, when women come to us, they're very much in similar situations where they have things they want to do, but they don't have the energy, or there's something with their health holding them back. They've had so much information and read so much information, they don't know what to follow, or they've tried, 10 or 20 things and nothing's worked. Or their kids are older and now they have time and they want to start looking after themselves. And so two of the biggest or most common feedback we hear from women that we have coached, people we have worked with, is one, simplifying the information. At the end of the day, we all know what to eat and we all know what to put on our plate. But there's things that we can do and little tips and tricks that make making those decisions much easier. Also, the program we usually use is a 12-week program, and it's very phased. It's a very phased approach. And so while we're working on nutrition, we're also looking at things like gut health, and we're looking at what's happening with your hormones and blood sugar. We're looking at your environment and stress, and practices we can do to regulate your nervous system. And so that's the second biggest transformation. And the feedback that we hear is how holistic the program actually is. Because again, putting food that's on our plate, we know we need complex carbohydrates and vegetables and protein, but also the other pieces that start connecting that, so that when we're making decisions, all of our decisions around health should nourish us, including what's in our environment and what's on our plate and the books that we read or the TV shows that we watch. At least the 80-20 rule, where we're making positive choices the majority of the time. And, there's still room because we're human and would like to enjoy certain indulgences, and making that very practical and realistic for people. At the end of the day, making, if you have a health goal or you have something that you want to accomplish, or health challenges, it's usually not something that happened overnight. It's usually something that's been happening over years. And so expecting quick fixes, like there's no quick fix that's going to be sustainable and something you can maintain. And so just like it took a while to get there, it's going to take a while to get you to where you want to be, and being able to support women through that. That's, where people, when they step away and they're done coaching, that's where we see the biggest change in confidence and empowerment, and the decisions that they're making that actually nourish them, and they're able to do so confidently and maintain that.
Wow, because a lot of times there's so many different extreme diets out there that they eliminate all of the carbohydrates or certain food groups, and then it's not sustainable. I remember seeing like a little meme or cartoon online where it was like, on keto, the person's skinny, and then have one donut and poof, there again. And I was like, it's so relatable when you watch that. And so what you do is something that's sustainable, that has, something that's nourishing and has all the different food groups, not necessarily just eliminating whole aspects of your diet. And then that just kind of supports the whole person, whether they're still working in corporate or private sector or in their own business, to be able to give them that energy to be able to do everything that they're doing and take care of their children and home life and everything on the side as well, which can be really exhausting, especially if someone like yourself is a single mom and they're having to basically do everything. Like, have you noticed a difference since you've started doing this holistic health and healing and wellness work for yourself as well, with your energy levels and how you're able to, kind of manage everything that you're having to go through?
Oh, definitely. I think when I was in my 20s and, my only responsibility was either work and school and myself. Our days look very different. And now at 38, my responsibilities have significantly changed. And so getting to the gym for an hour and a half and meal prepping for the week and, all of those things, they just add a layer of stress and expectation. And if there's anything, that's new or unfamiliar, then we gravitate towards what's old and familiar, even if those are patterns that don't actually serve us. And that applies again in any category, not just with health and wellness. And so with my own experience, a lot of it is just being more accepting of where I'm at and what season of life I'm in. Taking the time to rest and recover, because that's part of health and wellness too. Now I'm like, if I think of where I'm at over the last 7 years and 5 years and 3 years, I work out 3 to 4 times a week, 45 minutes, and I get amazing results. And the decisions that I make around food, they're not fear-based. They're not, I need to cut all carbs. I need to cut all sugar. They're more, I'm just choosing food that's going to give me the energy and that's going to make me feel great. And I feel good about that. I'm not worried about going on a vacation or going to a party and being stressed out because I'm going to overeat all the processed food and I need to start over on Monday. And like, that doesn't, that's not part of the way that I think anymore. And so that's one of the, that's what we want. That we all want to be able to feel confident and that those choices are easy. And so, and it can be a very difficult thing. It can be very challenging. Like I said, myself, I used to count macros and micronutrients. I used to count calories. I used to work out an hour and a half a day, and I still never got the results I wanted. And I was always comparing myself or looking at my results or the number on the scale. And that's just not part of, who I am anymore in my practices. And I'm far much more confident in my body and in my energy and in my health. And, that's where vitality comes from. That's where longevity comes from. And that's what allows me to do all the other things, like start a business and a podcast and write a book and have, show up as a mom with energy. And, and that's, what my priorities are.
And you mentioned there's a client who was wanting to focus on weight, like you noticed you were able to, support yourself with the weight loss, and then they found something much deeper that needed attention. What happened in that scenario with the client?
Yeah. This is a client I worked with recently, and I met her at one of the conferences that I do at one of the shows. And the initial goal when she came to me was she wanted to lose weight. She was postmenopause. She had always been active, and the things just didn't work anymore. And she was actually having lots of symptoms. And so one of the things I love in the health and wellness field is just how much more research and attention we're giving to hormone health in women specifically, and perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, and some of the symptoms that women experience. And so, although her initial goal was weight loss, the work that we had done over the course of a couple months was actually, giving herself more grace. One of the things that she had experienced, when I do my health assessment, is she was actually sick all the time. And so every time she got sick, she felt like she had to start over. She was starting from scratch. And so changing that frame of thinking, okay, well, this is your body giving you a sign you need to slow down. So taking that time to rest and recover, that's not a setback. That's just, that's what you need to do right now. And not, again, when we make health goals and when we set on new health plans, we're trying to change everything at once. We're going to the gym, we're trying to change what we eat. And those are very hard changes to sustain. And so making those changes gradually and slowly, she wasn't getting ill and her other symptoms were improving. With when it comes to weight and numbers, those numbers are very specific for an individual. So what somebody thinks they should lose isn't always the case, especially as women move into menopause and bodies change, but also recognizing that it is still possible to lose weight, but also changing the goal from the number on the scale, and we focused on strength. So lifting weights and being strong, not only does it improve some of the symptoms and some of the things that women experience with menopause, but it changes people's body and it changes people's confidence, and it supports your immune system and hormone health. And so those were the things that really made the biggest impact for her, and changing the way that she thinks and those expectations and the comparison trap. What worked when we're 20 and 30 doesn't work now when we're 38 and 40 and 45, and trying to, get used to that new norm, but also still being able to accomplish health goals.
So then you help women to kind of change their perspective regarding that comparison to themselves as a younger version of themselves, or maybe others out there as well. And then what happens when women start prioritizing themselves and start, not stop comparing themselves to their younger version or others that are out there? What happens at that point when they start to focus on, what really matters with their health and wellness?
Yeah. It's when we think about that internal transformation and what comes out and what we see on the outside, to me, that's the biggest difference, because, just because you were 20 and you looked a certain way doesn't mean that was better. It just means it's different. And so self-acceptance and prioritizing yourself, also figuring out what that means to somebody. So for me, that means personal development, and that means I'm always growing. That means I'm putting myself in positive environments, and I'm nourishing, health. Again, it's not just nutrition, but you're nourishing your mind, your body, your soul, whatever that means to each individual. And so that's really, what we try to support women with, and the people that we coach with. And that's where women and people start making those connections that, this is where I feel good, and this is where I feel strong, and this is where I'm not tired by 3 p.m. and reaching for the fourth cup of coffee and a sugary treat. Having that sustained energy, and the reasons why you might have had those challenges, again, vary so much for the individual, but really getting to the root cause and working through that with somebody, that's where they start to feel different inside, and then those changes we see on the outside.
And what are some of those common beliefs that women have about their bodies that you're, supporting them in changing?
Mm-hmm. The biggest things are, anything we say to ourselves that's negative. I've done this 100 times. It's not going to work. I'm never going to lose the 10 pounds. I don't know enough to step into a gym, or I'm never going to feel confident in my clothes or in front of my partner or in a swimsuit on the beach. And that comparison, well, she looks like this, she did this and it worked for them, so I'm going to do this. So it's all of those things, and why we make our decisions that way and how we talk to ourselves. So that's really, if anyone listening today, when you step away today, I would just encourage you to spend the day and just paying attention to what you say to yourself and how you speak to yourself. Because would you speak like that to your friend? Would you speak like that to your sister or to your mom or your child? So why do we say those things to ourselves? Because that's one of the things that's stopping progress. And coming from, practice what you preach, because those are things I've also done. We're all human at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what we all have feelings and insecurities and bad days, and being accepting of that and not letting it completely, it doesn't mean you need to start from scratch. It just means tomorrow's a new day and you just keep going.
So have you had any techniques that you use for yourself or others to reframe that from thinking negatively about themselves, comparing themselves to their younger version of themselves or others, or even now they could compare themselves to their own, like if they create their own AI, that's a duplicate of them. The AI never ages, never needs to eat or sleep, or, always stays a certain age forever. So how will people be able to deal with all of those? So now not only are they feeling like they're competing against their younger self or others out there, but maybe their own AI version of themselves. What do you kind of, how do you reframe all of that for that thinking, that mindset from the negative to the positive?
Yeah. For me, I think the biggest thing is again, how we talk to ourselves. And, starting with that, because when we start paying attention to those things, one, it can be really scary for the things that come up, and also trying to understand them. So if you gravitate towards, I don't know, I hate my legs, like why? They allow you to get up and move every day and walk up the stairs and run after your kids or get to work. Like there's so many, why are we focused on is it the aesthetics? Is it, whatever we struggle with when it comes to body image or weight or health? And so to me, that's the biggest thing. And when you start changing that, instead of saying something you hate about yourself, why not something, why do we always go to worst case scenario? Why not something you love about yourself? And if you're really struggling that day, something that I started doing that's so simple. And these are the things that, I used to ignore when it comes to deep breathing. And when it came to meditation, that's not for me. I don't have time. I'm too high strung, or I have too much stuff to do. But even taking, 5 minutes outside, or writing down 3 things that you're grateful for that day, after a couple days, those simple things can do so much just to start changing your mindset and changing the way that you feel. And so when you feel good, or you make a good decision that you feel good about, that little dopamine hit, that's where the momentum comes from. You only need those couple of seconds to make another good decision. And when you have momentum, that's when you have consistency. And so starting to change things, again, it's not a quick fix, but just starting with something small and expanding on that, that's where we start to see changes, and that's where we continually move forward. For me, that's been the biggest game changer, working with clients and starting off with those things, you see really great results, and then they just feel empowered to keep going.
I love that you said, especially when you said about, the legs, someone not liking their legs. What was interesting is I had a negative thought over the weekend and I took a walk and I walked through the park and I saw this man. He had his wheelchair, parked up against his this park bench, and he had a little thin, kind of like maybe a little patio kind of chair pad, and a thin little blanket, and he was laying down on the bench, and I looked at him and he didn't have a leg, and I thought, oh my goodness, here I am thinking this negative thought, and this person is literally sleeping on this bench and has no leg and has their wheelchair parked up to the bench. And so that was a great analogy regarding that, because people could be not liking something about themselves, but at least they have that part that they can use, like you said, to walk, to run after their children, to be able to do so many things. So just looking at it from that perspective and being grateful and thankful and choosing to love ourselves, I think is a part of that. So with regards to the science and how do you combine the fact that you have this scientific background with the holistic wellness in your practice? Do you do some baseline testing with regards to the traditional testing as well with holistic, or how do you do the two?
Just my career being science-based, doing a very thorough health assessment. One of the things from my clients is, wow, that assessment's really long. So they are long, but to be able to get a thorough understanding of what's happening with your systems. And so, and then from there, determining. That's why we focus on chronic inflammation, because there's so many sources of inflammation, again, not just with processed food, but in our lifestyles and in our environments. And so we do focus on inflammation. And oftentimes there is a key component with gut health and hormone and blood sugar balance. But by focusing on inflammation and helping to cut that out, the symptoms that people are left over with, that can often give us a more clear indication of what's happening. Because, fatigue and stubborn weight gain and brain fog, those are very general complaints we have when it comes to health that's related to, or can be related to, many, many different reasons. And so at the end of the day, living an anti-inflammatory lifestyle as per the science and the research, and one of the things as a nurse, as a clinical nurse specialist, everything's very research focused, and also where's your research and evidence and information coming from? Being able to weed out the information, with certain companies, do they do their own research or is it third party research? And so when you take that and you couple it with the individual and what they're experiencing, that's where we start to see health plans that actually make a difference. And again, people coming to us with certain health challenges, what they think might be going on oftentimes isn't really what's happening. And when we start addressing the root cause and understanding that, sometimes, we work very closely with people's primary providers, with any other practitioners they may be working with, hypnotherapists and naturopaths and general practitioners and personal trainers, like to be able to collaborate and work with different practitioners to make sure that person's getting care that's optimized for them. Also, as a health coach, I work within that scope. So I'm not working within my nursing scope. I'm working as a registered and certified health coach. And so also just being aware of that as well when it comes to making recommendations.
And then you're able to, if need be, talking to the other practitioners and kind of working together for whatever the best outcome is for the client. That's wonderful to be able to look at it from a holistic perspective. And so with regards to how it's been able to, be supportive to women who have, just kind of accepted the feeling of exhaustion and just being disconnected from their bodies, and they're just making, phrases such as they're just getting older and that's normal. What would you say regarding that?
Yeah, we hear that a lot. And also we're told that a lot. by different people we come in contact with in healthcare, different practitioners. Those are just your hormones. That's normal. Yes, you're tired. That's to be expected. You're just getting older. And those are terrible things to say, because they really, then people stop believing that they can feel any difference. All it is trying to understand what's happening with you. So, for example, a lot of the women we work with going through menopause, yes, menopause can come with certain symptoms and things that women experience, but we can change a lot with what's, with your health, so that those symptoms are less and what you're experiencing is less. And also understanding the right questions to ask. We know with changes in estrogen levels and menopause, that the things that women experience when it comes to not like hot flashes, which we're all familiar with, but what about pain that women experience and cardiac issues and changes to bone density and, all of those things that we can focus on and improve your experience, your day-to-day experience and the symptoms that you're experiencing. To tell somebody that exhaustion is normal and to be expected, and that brain fog is normal and to be expected. Like that's, first of all, it's not true. We can very much improve your experience, what you're feeling. But that also is very dismissive. And there's tons of things we can do to investigate and improve your quality of life, which at the end of the day, I think that's what most of us want.
And with regards to like building a business, because we're talking about business freedom and legacy, what were some of the things that you were surprised by about building your business? Was there anything in particular? And anything that you've noticed with regards to that?
Yeah, we were very unprepared when it comes to building a business and entrepreneurship. Both my sister and I, Nicole and I, being healthcare workers, we were very confident in working with clients and assessments and putting together health plans. But the business side of things is completely different. And so if anything, for anyone thinking of it or wanting to experiment, the biggest thing I would say is who you surround yourself with. Like, who are your mentors and who are you learning from? One of the amazing things with what we have with technology is AI. And there's tons of tools out there that can help with business growth and marketing and, all of those things. In addition to that, for me, the biggest thing was connecting with other women who were trying to build businesses and successful women in business and learning from them and joining networking groups and all of that. And so, my advice is to do that sooner, like do that now, even when that business is just a little idea or something you think about at night, when you're laying in bed and it's 3 a.m. Like, do all those things now. Just put yourself in that space, because that will get you there much quicker. And at the end of the day, we didn't know what we didn't know. We just thought we were going to, we have healthcare and we're going to be health coaches and we're going to start this business. And, the first 2 years was very much like just a wake up call that we had a lot we needed to do, but just to start, like once we just started again, then you start to get momentum and things start going and you learn things as you go and you just be open to that. There's always a better way of doing things, a faster way, but until you do things the hard way, then, then those other things become clear.
Yeah, I remember my father went through medical school, naturopathic school, every health and wellness designation you could think of, but they don't teach business at those schools. And so that's, a big learning curve for a lot of people in healthcare, because they're focused on supporting the client or patient and getting the best, for them, not thinking about the business aspect of it, which I think is wonderful that they get into that primarily to support, people in their health and healing, but they also need to learn about business as well, which is something, like you said, learn it sooner rather than later, because it's so important. I think they should be teaching it in the healthcare practitioner schools, because it's part of what they need to do as well. Even if they are, in a system, there is some aspect of their own business. So even if they're working for other, organizations, it's still their own business at the same time. And so they need to learn all of those things. So I think that's really powerful that you mentioned that. And then with regards to, what would you say to your self, if you were able to say something, years ago,
Mhm.
what would you tell her now about your journey, where you've come to now? I think part of it is what you just said, with get those business supports in place before. Is there anything else that you would say?
Yeah. The easiest thing, also the hardest thing, is if it makes you uncomfortable, then you should probably do it. Because
Mhm.
again, anything that's will always gravitate towards what's familiar. Even if it's not good for us. That's true with relationships, whether that be family or romantic. It's true with, things we take in school and books we want to read or whatnot. But if it's new and it's unfamiliar, especially when it comes to building a business or trying to accomplish a new personal goal, if it feels uncomfortable, then do more of that. So for me, speaking to patients and families and physicians, and that was really easy, but speaking in front of a room full of people, that was really hard. So I need to do more of that.
Mhm.
And we try to apply those principles in what we do. Also, one of the reasons was starting a podcast. Okay, so we have a hard time with this. Let's just, record it and put it out there for thousands of people to hear. And then it just gets easier. And it's also the most rewarding. Like if something's challenging, then you want to do that. And so that's what I encourage people to do.
Mhm. Wonderful. And then with regards to success, what does that mean to you now with your business and everything else that you're doing, and
Mhm.
raising, your daughter as well, and all the
Yeah.
relationships that you have? Mhm.
For me, success was always very scripted because after, high school, I went to university and I did my nursing degree, and then I worked, and then I went back and did my master's, and then I moved up in my career. And to me, that was always success, was having a very like thought out plan. And then I was going to execute the plan and tick off all the check mark boxes. Now, when it comes to building A&N and building up my own skills as an entrepreneur or writing my second book. To me, success is just, the three things that are going to get me closer to those goals and then repeating them every day. Now, of course, there's going to be off days. But when it comes to trying to do new things, we can make ourselves really, really busy with things that don't really matter because and that's what keeps us stuck. And so by doing something that forces me out of my comfort zone and doing three little tasks every day that's going to get me to that bigger goal, to me, that's what success looks like. It doesn't need to be a checklist. It doesn't need to be my color coded Post-it notes or, something my sister and I joke about all the time is we have lots of certifications and degrees, and we could stay in school forever and just keep working on that. But again, that's not going to get you to where you want to be. So eventually you need to cut that out. Continue with personal development, but just start doing the things. So every little thing that we do, I think that brings us closer to success.
Yeah. Yeah. After seeing my family and my father have walls of degrees, medical degree, naturopathic, every health and wellness one you could think of or something close to it, and closets full of degrees, I realized that part of that, getting another degree and another certification, is part of imposter syndrome, not feeling like you're 100% ready to
Yeah.
do what you need to do. When you do have that with your, experience and your gifts and calling and treasures and talents and the amount of education you have, just go for it. And you can always add to it as you go along. But like you said, do those things that are the priority to move the needle forward with your business. And what
Wow.
is it that you'd want women to remember about your story in particular after hearing it?
Yeah. For me, it's just embracing all of your experiences. Even if they're things that you're ashamed of or embarrassed of, or things you wish you had done differently, like at the end of the day, we take life so seriously, and we have expectations, and when things don't work out as expected, we get really disappointed in ourselves and our life and wanting to change things. And so, I think it's important just to embrace all of those things, how you process them, how you reflect them. It doesn't mean you need to share them, But to be able to take that and learn from that, and then just to continue moving forward, like those things shouldn't be holding us back. They shouldn't be reasons why we don't try new things or do things that scare us. And so, I'm 38 and I'm trying to move out of the corporate world into building businesses and doing all these things. Like, you're never too late to try something new. And so oftentimes we tell ourselves it's too late or I can't do it. And I think we really need to let those phrases go and just do something new if that's what you want to do, and to block out all those other opinions. I think that's also the biggest thing is we hear doubt from other places and other influences and people in our life. And, why would you change things? Why would you do this? Why would you, and oftentimes it's just because something new is scary and other people maybe haven't had the opportunity or that desire to branch out yet and do something new. And so don't let those things be the things that hold you back.
I love that. That's awesome, because it's so amazing when people can actually move forward with everything, all their dreams and plans and hopes, and you see that happen. And I think that must feel so rewarding for you to be able to, do those types of things that you never thought you would, to have a podcast that speaks to many people, to get out of your comfort zone. And those moments are what makes life worth living, right? To be able to see that success in your life in so many areas, when it's not just, like you said, those scripted areas, you're seeing it in multiple areas, and you're encouraging others to do that as well. When you get out of your comfort zone, then it encourages others to get out of their comfort zone as well. It makes that really exciting. So I appreciate you coming on today. And I think you have a couple free gift offers as well for everyone. Can you share a little bit about those?
Yeah, we have a couple of ebooks, a couple of guides. So the first one is 7 Days to Reduce Inflammation. So this is focused on inflammation and a nervous system reset. We stray away from those 7-day juice cleanses and detoxes. If that's your thing, we're not knocking that. But when we have these 7-day 7-day guides, we really try to encompass all of that. And then we also have another guide, Discover 5 Hidden Habits, to help your body of letting go of what's holding it back. And so again, all of our guides try to encompass not just nutrition, but those other factors when it comes to movement and stress and environment and mindset. So mindset is something we incorporate into anything. If you listen to our podcast or look at our content, that's always a key piece of it. And so you can be sure that our guides will give you a little dose of all of that.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Andrea, and I'd love to stay connected with you and keep working with you and have you on again. And everyone, if you go to businesscoachingamerica.com/summit, and register today. And then if you go to /VIP-access, you'll get all the speaker gift bundle packages and everything that's in that. You'll get everything inside of the general package with just registering. But when you get the VIP-access, you'll also get the VIP free gift offers as well. And so when you book a consultation today for your free complimentary VIP one-to-one business accelerator consultation at businesscoachingamerica.com, then you're going to get all of those free gift offers. And when you book a consultation with Andrea and anyone else on my Business Freedom and Legacy Summit and their earlier guest speaker, Sarah, you'll receive an extra bonus from me as well today. So I appreciate you, Andrea. We'll have you come on again. And I look forward to continuing to work with you, and I'm excited to see what is going to happen for the remainder of 2026 and into 2027. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, everyone. And we'll have the replay going on right after, also on LinkedIn, because for some reason it didn't go live on LinkedIn. So we're going to set that up in just a moment as well. And I'll see you guys next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time or 12 noon Eastern time, right here at the same place. All right, talk to you later. Cheers.